We're here in downtown Washington, D.C. at the annual Heritage Foundation President's Club. And joining us today to chat just a little bit about some pressing issues is Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Sir, thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be with you.
So the first thing I want to dive into today is Obama's executive order on immigration, something a lot of people have been talking about lately. This seemed like kind of a political move to me. What do you think?
Well, it bothers me. I'm very concerned about the president thinking that he basically can act like a king. I mean, one of the things that we did when we founded our country was to separate the powers. Legislation was supposed to come from Congress, and then the president was allowed to execute that. And one of our founding fathers, the philosophers that they often referred to as Montesquieu, and Montesquieu said that when you allow the executive to begin to legislate, that's a form of tyranny. And so I'm very concerned, and I think Congress should do everything they can to stop him from believing that he can create law without our approval.
Right. Another pressing issue in the news today is obviously Ebola and how that's being handled. Do you think that the CDC has their finger on the pulse of what needs to be done in terms of protocol, in terms of protecting the American people?
I think from the very beginning they've tried to downplay this disease and say, oh, we're completely in charge, we know everything about it. And then when a couple of the nurses came down with it, was like, oh, those nurses don't know what they're doing. And it's like, you're going to blame the nurses for not knowing what they're doing when they were following a protocol that CDC set up? But they always wanted to indicate it was always just through direct transmission of fluids, which makes you think, well, that's how you get AIDS, through direct transmission of fluids. So certainly it's pretty hard to get, right? Well, apparently not. You can be fully gowned, gloved, masked, and still get it. And so I think they should just be a little more honest that it's incredibly infectious once someone gets sick, and that I think we really frankly ought to be talking about elective travel being suspended for a while from these countries.
I want to talk to you about religious liberty as well. Certainly we know the story coming out of Houston, where Annise Parker is asking for the subpoena of pastors' sermons. Now we know recently, earlier this week and Wednesday, she has since withdrawn that subpoena. What do Americans need to know about how their religious liberty is under attack?
I think the first thing you need to understand is why liberals think they can do this. Liberals think they can do this because they say if you get a tax deduction that the government's giving you something. I don't look at it that way. If I get a tax deduction, I'm getting to keep more of my labor and more of what I have earned with my hands. That's my stuff. That's my money. It's not the government's. If you acknowledge that it's a gift from government, that a deduction is a tax subsidy, then the government says they can control it. So what they're saying is that because people get a deduction for giving money to their church, that's a gift from government, and government can regulate sermons. This is antithetical to the First Amendment. It's antithetical to our founding. We should do everything possible to stop this from occurring.
Right. Switching gears a little bit here, I want to talk to you a little bit about Ferguson, Missouri. This is something you've obviously been very outspoken about. In fact, you met with a handful of African-American leaders in Ferguson to talk to them about how they can influence the vote at the ballot box and influence change there instead of through the riots. What do you think?
I've been one saying I want more people to vote, not less. And then when more people vote, people feel more a part of the government and they're less likely to act in a violent way. I also think that there's an undercurrent of unease in Ferguson and many of our other cities with poverty and crime. And we need to do something to try to correct that. So I've been talking a lot about bringing economic opportunity to our cities through dramatic reduction in taxes to try to stimulate the economy. When people have jobs, they're less likely to be unhappy.
Sir, thank you so much for joining us.
All right, thank you.